Hey, how's it going? Welcome back. Okay, what I'm going to be doing is continuing where I left off, and because we're using this project management tool I can see where I am, which is Tower 1. So I'm going to move that to the being worked on area and move that to my second window and just go and open Tower 1, which is, there we go, just here. And I can't remember how complicated this is or isn't, so let's hope it's not too bad. Oh, it doesn't look too bad, just hit F4. Interestingly, it's hollow. Shouldn't really be hollow, and it's got this bottom piece. That's no use to me either. So I'm going to start just adjusting our model, same as before. And this will allow me to get rid of several pieces. I'll just grow that. Just hit delete. Because really the last thing I need is a load of additional geometry where I don't need it. Okay, and we can see we've got all these opened windows here, so I'm just going to marquee grab straight through like that. Should be able to cap them. I'll just check they're all shut, and they certainly seem to be. Make sure there's no errors in the model. Okay, now we've got a couple of pieces here that we probably don't need, so might as well go and remove those while we have the chance. These are pieces that were probably created by mistake during the modeling process, so just doing the cleanup here. What we could do if we wanted to be especially cunning is just literally replicate the two areas over and over again and just have them as like a big tiled overlapping UV, but I'm not going to. So control backspace, get rid of that. Before, control backspace, after, yep, that's fine. Then control and click here. And control backspace just to get rid of that as well. And I can see there's these. These are obviously some sort of leftover from a previous piece of the model which has just been removed, and I mean I obviously made it, but the good thing is that you'll be able to complain and tell off whoever it is that modelled it if it was you who hadn't modelled this one. Control backspace. You notice they're all changing shape as I do this because obviously we no longer have the additional polygons to deal with. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go and do all these. And the first thing I want to do is start with these parts. I'm just going to go all the way around. Actually, before I do, I better add a UVW map to it as well. There we go. Wrong one. I meant, of course, an unwrap UVW. I always get these two mixed up for some reason. Open UV editor. And first, for the sheer comedies, let's just see what the flattened mapping would do, were we to let it have its wicked way with this. It would do that. Always hilarious. Okay, now let's do it all ourselves instead. So, remember I've taken the bottom off because we don't need it. Move these down here where they are out of the way. Got some big areas here and some small areas, so start off with that one. And I'm going to have it cylindrically projected. And I'm going to align it to the Z axis. There we go. It's that one. And we need to fit it. Center it. Now as you can see it's not quite right because it hasn't got these places yet. So I'll turn that off. Make sure I've got all these like that. And then projection map, and there you can see now it's slightly more sensibly done. The thing is I'd like to get the windows as well. So an easy way of doing this will be if I select inside the windows. And I'm sorry if I'm having to zoom around my model constantly here, it's just I don't have the luxury of using two monitors really for this without requiring you to have an abnormally large video. And most people complain our videos are fairly large as it is. Okay, so 2, there we go. That expands out like that, and now I'll just use the grab tool, well not grab but you know what I mean, marquee tool, like this. Okay, and we've got a couple of other areas that we can probably snag as well. Oops, so I'll just hold down the control key and get there. Let's get right in. It's kind of awkward because this piece is obviously quite large and a bit bulky for moving. There we go, like that. Right. So now we have this many. If I just go here to my cylindrical map, we can see that it's mapped the inside of these as well. I'll just turn that off again and go into my freeform deformation mode. And obviously, as this is the most detailed area, I'm going to give this one some height like that. But you can see that it's actually being fairly logical, so that is cool. So what I need to do now is select the polygons that make this up. That one, for example, seems to be a little bit ludicrously large. I'm not sure what's going on there. So what I'm going to do is stick an edit poly on top of this. My polygon modeler, delete that. And cap it. And then go to the unwrap UVW. Open the editor. Right, and we can see that we still have, thankfully, our polygons, but now they're a little bit tidier. Although I suspect that this polygon here, as you can see, isn't in there. So let's just see if it is. That one's there. That one's there. No, they all seem to be there. That's cool. Okay then, so now what I can do then is select all these, make sure I've got all the windows, and zoom in a bit. There we are. Now I'm just going to scale them just on one axis, and then move them. That way we get the inner sill. Now I'm going to change this again. Just do this. Because, I mean, the inside of the window is just going to be a white area to denote the fact there's some light there. Then with some dirt thrown on it because it's like a kind of hellish, dilapidated kind of castle. So, we don't need a lot of area in order to get that kind of dirty white across. Okay, that seems fine. Let's make sure it's not going to be too stretched because I think it might be a little bit. There, that's probably better. Right, now I can go and get the top of our model. So if I just look at it there, flip it over, I can see this, and if I just click grow, we then end up with this kind of crown here. So that's ideal. So what I'm going to do is just projection map that, planar. Now obviously my planar map is not aligned correctly, so let's align it correctly. There we go, so it's on the Z axis. And I'm going to scale it. Just scaling it manually using my eye to keep it kind of round. And then I'm going to get this inner part, which is this inner polygon, and just uniformly scale that in like that. And then we have basically a good area to kind of have our dirt and everything else running out on. Okay, now for the top ring, which is kind of this part over here, I'm just going to go around it. I'll just zoom in for a minute. I said it before, it's kind of awkward, unfortunately, having to work on one monitor, so I'll just do the best I can. But we need to make sure that we've got all the parts selected. I'm using a new keyboard today as well, so that's leading to some excitement, because I was supposed to be doing some more actual recording work last night, but then I knocked my mug of coffee all over the computer and it basically soaked into my keyboard, which is a shame because it was a nice keyboard as well. Normally I'm not that careless, so it's kind of annoying, but you know what it's like, sometimes accidents happen. Okay, now if we look, we can also embed that sill just there. There's no reason why we shouldn't. And we should always go and quickly check as well that we haven't done anything dramatically silly to our model. So make sure we haven't selected anything we shouldn't have. It all seems good. Alright then, so again, just bring this back over to here. And I'm going to project map it from the top. There we go. So you can see where it is now. Just going to freeform mode. Like so. Now, the problem we have is that we also have the sills in these that we need to take account of. So I'm just going to use the scale tool and just bring each one down a bit like that. That way we won't get too much stretching on them. And what we can do as well is I'm going to go through here and just move these as well. Like that. And then it's kind of evening it out a bit. There we are. Like so. It's a bit rough and ready, and hopefully you'll have more time to do a more precise job yourself, but it'll do, it'll do. So if I get there, think of my freeform deform. Put them right next to each other, just making sure there's a gap, obviously. And that just leaves this bit here. And this bit here is that part, obviously. It's kind of helpful, just having that one bit there. I mean, we're going to be colouring this all concrete coloured anyway, so it's not really too much of an issue for me, but let's have a look. Well, stone coloured really, not concrete coloured. First of all, we'll go to projection map, and as you can see, it's basically just projected it all this way. I'm going to move it over here, and it's kind of messy the way it's projection mapped that. I don't like it too much. Let's see if there's anything that can be done with this, because it's obviously it's too long, which is why it looks like that. It's should be more like this. And if I just go into my constrained move tool, we can start moving the parts around a bit, making sure there's no parts caught in between. Although that isn't really the issue so much as I'll just grab these, the scaling that we're going to need to be doing. So if I go through here now, you can see the scaling there. Now the original shape this was when I first had it. Let's see if we can get it back. No, we can't, sadly. That's a shame, because that was actually quite a good shape. Although that's quite a good shape too, it's just scaled straight from the top. Or spherical? Ooh, I don't know. Decisions are decisions, eh? I'll just do this one anyway. I'll go back to what I was doing. So, freeform it. And then I'm just going to extend it a little bit this way. We have, stop that you, this polygon here. Now what is this polygon? It's that. Is this just one single polygon? It is, look. Well, that's no good, is it? That means we've still got another error on our mesh, which would explain a lot. So let's save. Okay, and with my model saved, I'm going to stick another edit poly on it. And I want to go select this, which is just one gigantic polygon, and just delete it. And then I can select these two borders here and bridge them. And then stick an unwrap on top of that. Okay, now we should have a slightly more logical layout to this. So what I'm going to do is just select this lot and then cylindrically map it. There, that's much tidier. Okay, now I've just expanded the entire lot and I'm going to go down like this, just do some adjusting. Probably going to need to adjust these crenellations a bit, so if I go over here to my verts, just get the top ones, I can hold shift and just move them down like that. Everything's actually fairly ordered now, which is good. Now then, let's see if there's any severe problems I need to deal with here. Yep, there's a couple of extra. If you look there and there, you can see them like that, with a polygon on top of it. Which is going to be a problem. So let's see if we can get rid of this problem by scaling, or if I'm going to have to do something else. I might need to actually separately map a couple of pieces of this, which I prefer not to do, but let's have a look. So I'm going to move this over to here. Just go around it. Unfortunately, you see this cunning lip piece that I made here. It's probably a little bit too cunning. There we go. Let's go around. And I know I can automate this, but I prefer to make sure I'm selecting the right polygons myself. Okay, so that gives us that piece there, without that one. Just make sure it's only the ones I want. You can tell because that plane will be flat, which it really isn't, which means that something else has been selected. Let's have a look now. Is that flat yet? Nope. Swear to God, it's turning into a blooming very random thing, this one, isn't it? There, that one was selected. That one isn't. Honestly, the things I do. Right, so that should give me this piece here, and then I can unmap it. Just over here. Just using a quick planar. And that gives me this, which is kind of a ring that goes around the outside of that part. And what I can do is take this and just squish it up a bit and stick it inside this one. Okay, and that gets rid of the part at the bottom here that was causing a lot of the issues. I just find the move tool. You can see now that's kind of straightened out a bit. We still have some overlap there, but we might be able to sort that out by just doing that, like so. And then you can see there's a couple of extra ones in there as well, but we can scale those in. By we, I mean me, obviously. Sometimes it's convoluted the way we do things, but there's almost always a reason for things. There we go. So now we have this, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to grab that now and just use my transform, and I'm just going to stick it in here. Obviously making sure it basically doesn't overlap any of those parts. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces now, and that's all there is. So now what I can do is collapse these ones. So I could just, you know, collapse it down or collapse 2 or whatever. Obviously you'll notice we've got like the stack, it's completely different at the top to the one at the bottom. If I open a UV editor on this now, you'll see that our map is still maintained, but I've collapsed the stack. So I just collapsed it too, and then opened a new unwrap UVW on this, like so, you see. Okay, now what I can do is I can go to Tools, render my UVW template, like so. Just do that, and then I'm going to save it. So best thing for me to do is use the naming convention I already have. Just make sure I've got the right folders. So for example, again with wall 1, I believe I called it, yep, wall 1 UV template. So this is going to be Tower1 UV template, and it's a JPEG. So we're in the Tower1 folder, UV template, okay, and save it as a JPEG, large size. Close that down, close that down, close that down. Okay, that was fun, wasn't it? Now what I'm going to do is Control S just to save it, and what I need to do now is go over to my Photoshop, and I'm just going to open my let's see, I need to open my textures up. So if I go to my Development 2 folder, and I want to go to the folder I was working in here, reference PSDs, and just grab the pair of them. Now I'm going to open my UV template for Tower1. So there we go, and I should point out this has been unwrapped. That way I know I'm still working on it. That way if someone else has been working on another model for me, I'd know where it was in the queue and who it was assigned to. Let's open my template. Lovely, there we go. Now then, we've got this part here first, so what I'm going to do is just grab this using the marquee tool, Control C, and I'm going to make a new layer. Nice and empty, and just drop this in it, and then I can use the wand tool and delete off those parts, and then just invert it, and I should be able to just fill this in with a nice black. Possibly, anyway. I'll just click a lot on it, what the heck. I suppose I could just use like the paintbrush tool as well. Just about like clicking things. There we go. Eventually clicked and filled in. Control D. Okay, so this layer here is going to be our tower wall. Now if we go back to our original background here, which we can now see again, we have these parts here. Control-Shift-I, Control-Shift-C, Control-Shift-V. So we're going to take this up to here. And what I want to do is just remove the bottom part, because we're not really using it anyway. So Marquee tool, because I've already got that on a different layer. There we are. I'm going to hide the background because I don't need it at the minute. Okay, and that just leaves us this layer here. So if I use my wand again, and then Control-Shift-I, make sure my opacity is 100, I'll just fill these in. That's not how you do it, you silly thing. Oh, I see what I've done. Okay, so wand there, there, Control-Shift-I. Now fill in with a brush, there we are. Control-D. And this part obviously here is then going to be my what do you call it? My tower top. Now I'd like to actually expand this out a little bit if I can, or even just, you know, smooth my selection a little bit. Let's just modify it or refine my edge. There we go. So I'm just going to refine my edge. Let's see. Smooth it a little bit. I'm not going to feather it. Shift my edge out a little bit and click OK. And then just paint it in. Hopefully that'll be a little bit smoother. A little bit. Okay. Now then, I can turn my background back on if I want, but I need to rename this first. Layer properties, and this is tower top. There we are. Okay, now if I go over to my tower wall here, I'm going to get my base wall, PSD, Control-A, Control-C, and I'm going to just paste it in over that. Now at the minute, as you can see, it's a bit big, so image size, and let's make that a percentage, just 50%. And I better make the height the same, really, hadn't I? Because I didn't realise it hadn't been constrained. So Control-A, Control-C, tower wall, and just gonna basically just throw them next to each other like this, and then bring it down by Control-E, then right click on layer 1 and make it into a clipping mask, so that I can move it around and get it to wherever it is that I want. Okay, that's quite nice. Okay, now I'm going to do the cement layer on the top, or whatever the heck this is, the grey stone basically. Control-A, Control-C. So if I go up here now to tower top and just start doing this, just making loads of it. There we go, like that, and then Control-E until we've just got one layer there, which I will then turn into a clipping mask. And again, I can move that around if I want. Now, what I want to do here is change the opacity. That way I can see through it and see what I'm doing. And I'll do the same here. I can bring them back up again later. That way I can turn my background on. Actually, it wasn't the opacity on that one I needed to change, it's the actual... There, that one. Just so I can see where the important things are. Alright, now, if I just zoom in a bit, and just go over there. What I'd like to do is just darken down some of these edges a little bit, just so that the system will kind of pick up that I've done that. So I can use my burn tool. Just go over here onto this layer. Make sure I've got nothing selected. Should be about right. Just go around here like that and just add some dirt edge to it. All I'm doing is basically just darkening up these parts. Don't really need to do it around that. I might just add a little bit around the base of the tower here as well. Because I'll just darken it down before we throw it in DDO and NDO. Okay, background. I'll just come in here. Because what I need to do is create some windows next. So I'm going to pause while I sneeze. There we go. You can thank me for that via email later, I'm sure. Now I'm going to just select these parts like this and just go in. You'll notice they're not entirely straight, so I mean you can basically use the polygonal lasso tool if you prefer to get these straight. It's up to you. Because I'm cheating like hell and basically throwing NDO and DDO onto these, it's going to just muss up the edges for me anyway, which will look cool as hell, so I'm not going to lose too much sleep over it. There we go, so that one first, like that, and I'm going to make a new layer, which will be right at the top, rename layer, so layer properties, and in oops, caps is on, window sills, okay, because that's what they are, and for that I think probably just a feral grey, or I could even just use our stone, I suppose. There we go. Change the opacity on those down a bit so I can see again, and then I can basically just grab the inside of the windows. And this is particularly useful if you have an emissive map in UDK, because what I could do is I can basically just use this layer, have all the other layers turned off, visibility rise, save it, and then I can use this one as our emissive layer, and it means the windows will appear bright, as if there's stuff going on in there, which is cool. So this one I'll rename Windows. Okay, because that's what they are. Change that to white, stick on a brush, and do that. Okay, and that's it. So now come out, and I'm just going to change my opacity back. Like that, and then on this one. Okay, so again we get to see what a completely plain looking thing it is, but that's okay. So then file, and we're just going to save it as. And as before, we can check our naming standard if we want to. At the moment our naming standard is basically, that's not the right window, here we go, Wool 1 basic texture, so this will be Tower1 basic texture. It's really important to obviously try and maintain your naming standards where you can. I'm as guilty as the next man of not doing so, but let's just have a quick look and see what it looks like. Tower1. Yeah, it's pretty D. There's quite a lot of texture stretching going on here though. See there? And that ain't good. In fact, that's far too much texture stretching. Let's have a look at our UV editor and see where these are exactly. Well, they are there, but is there another polygon on top of them? Let's have a look. No, there isn't. So those shouldn't be that stretched, but they are. And I'm not sure why. Let's see if we can't fix this, eh? So again, normally we don't have to do this kind of repair job, but we'll stick an edit poly on it. Thankfully 3ds Max is a lot more forgiving than it ever used to be in the past. Not a lot more forgiving, but a little bit more. And let's try just taking a cut across there. And then here. There we go. So again, just cutting through these. We should have some exciting new UVs soon. Because it seems strange that they're not right, but then again, I think it's because these polygons aren't right as well. You can see how our texture is basically snapping into place on the bottom one, not the top one. Let's cut through these. But then again, these models were never really built to be used in a game engine, so we're really adapting them on the fly. It just seemed like, you know, they'd probably work at the time. Okay, so let's have a look. We can actually work with our live map, should we so wish, which is probably a better idea at this point. So, turn off the cut tool, and I'll open another unwrap. There we go. I can close this off. I'll just open my editor, and we can choose our texture to display, which is kind of helpful. Like that. Okay, because normally, obviously, we don't have this if I'm unwrapping it. And let's see where that is. Well, there, you can see that's at that edge. That ain't no good. That explains. Well, that's why it's created, though, obviously. So let's go ahead and cylindrically prepare these things. There we go. So that's all of those. And what I'm going to do is do that just to create a cylindrical map. And as we can see, the cylindrical map's the wrong way up, so do that, and now it's the right way up. Then turn it off and just move this. Just crunch them down a bit so they're about that big. Okay, because the good thing is that, as before, what we can do is just grab them all and just start bunging them on top of each other. I'll just expand this up so I've got as much real estate as possible on the screen. Because what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to poach some of the texture space that's sitting doing very little at the moment, except just being the base of the upstairs tower. So what we can do is basically just dump this into it. Watch. Let's just get them all sharing the same UV space, more or less. They'll all look fairly similar for muchness, but they're going to look better than that awful looking tiling that we had before. Okay, pull out, and if I just unconstrain this again and just marquee select it, and what I can do is just put this here, and if I want to get some individual parts, then I could literally drag each one of these ones individually around and move them to various areas. But I think what I'm going to do instead is scale them up a little bit. Not too much, otherwise the detail on them will be way harder than its little friends here. And then if I just click out, we can see that we now have a fairly normal looking texture appearing there. Now then, if you remember, we also have this issue just here with the texture being basically squished in too much, because this doesn't have enough detail for us. Well, we can probably get around that as well. Let's have a look. We might need to split this up into two parts though in order to do so. So let me see. Is there any area in particular for us that seems like it could do with more detail? Well, let's just have a look at our max model again. Hit F4. We can see the area that's standing out the most for me, I don't know about you, is the outside of our crenellations here. So we can more or less do what we did before. Obviously we don't want that piece, so get all those and do a Z spherical. Then if I open my UV editor, there you can see them there. Okay, I'll just pull them over to here now. And another option is if you wanted to get some variation on them without actually having to do any editing at all to our poor old UV map, well, to our texture rather, you can just do this. I mean, obviously, you know, I'd like it if you made them a little bit better packed than this. This is very rough and ready. However, this is kind of a fast repair of this. There we go, stick those there, I think. Because if you watch now, our crenellations are much higher detail than they were before, which is cool. And they can, as before, if I just quickly save that, I can collapse to and then stick on a new unwrap UVW, and we'll have our UVs like that. Okay, it's a bit quick and dirty, however it's worked, and these will go into wherever the heck we throw it into. Right then, what I'm going to do now is go back to Photoshop, and obviously with our basic one here, Control S, just make sure it's all saved up. I'm going to fire up NDO first, which I have on my toolbar, and again I'm not going to update it. I know I should, I'm not. And if you remember, what we need to do is we need to make an ambient, a diffuse, a normal, and a specular. So first things first, I'm going to go at my presets, and I'm going to have stone wall and run it from my active document. And this will create me a nice simple normal map, which obviously I can then adjust in any way that I see fit. Just wait patiently while this happens. It's quite fun working on one where we have to actually break from the normal and do something different. Nearly there. It's just putting together the last few aspects, I think. It tends to get to this stage when it's near the end. Yes, it is. There we go. And that's the normal. So now I can adjust the detail. De-soften some of the larger areas and the medium areas. Reduce some of the larger volume a bit. Increase the sharp definition. Have a quick look at it in the previewer. It's madness, isn't it? Okay, that's cool. Okay, and then obviously I'm going to save this, so file and save as, and this will be let me see, Tower1 normal, and it's going to be a target. There we go. Now I can use my Tower1 target here and convert it. So what I want is let me see, ambient and specular. Yep, that should do. Just those two, just from the active one. So if we wait patiently, we'll just fire them all up. And I believe that's the ambient occlusion created. Now I'll be making a specular from this. That's the displacement map created. It uses the displacement to actually start building the specular, from what I can tell. I'm nowhere near as clever as those Quixel guys, but seriously, it does some mad magic. There we go. So now I can change the depth of my ambient occlusion, for example. Edge contrast. It's a bit light on those edges there, you see, which is a bit weird, but never mind. I'll just reduce the volume and that should stop it being quite so much of a problem. Just tweaking with it a little bit until I get something I like. And then for my ambient occlusion, there we go, that should be fine. So now I can control S that one, and I'll call this one Tower 1 Ambient. Hang on, no, I didn't want to call it a PSD. Save as Tower 1 Ambient Target. And then Tower 1 Specular. Okay. And then I can just close these off. I'll keep this one, and I'm going to save this as Tower 1 Diffuse. There we go, like that. And then I can just close this off. And then I can run up DDO. DDO will take a minute to start. Hey there, DDO. Okay, and for modules, I just clicked the wrong button, but never mind, let's just shut that off. We'll go to modules, automation hub, quick load, and I'm going to go to my Tower 1. Just grab these four and hit return. There we go. Now then for my dirt, I'm going to have... which one was it again? I can always forget. Over the top wear, that's the one, in grey shades. Much materials by... no. Brightness, perhaps. Actually, no, I'll just use weight to sod it. Detail size normal, work res full. Mash that button. I'm going to hit pause. See you in about 3 minutes my time. There we go. Did it. Lovely. Really messy, grungy. Generally quite awful. Yeah, lovely at the same time. Exactly what I wanted. Okay, so if I want to change any of these details, like the oxidization and stuff, I can. And obviously it'll adjust it for me. But really, I quite like what it came up with. I think it's nice. It just looks all dirty and awful. So what I can do is, I can obviously preview it in my previewer if I want. Just wait for that to come up. It's looks like it's going to mess around with the materials for a minute. And my preview is opened on the different window. There we go. Okay, so now you can check the light on it and see how it looks and stuff. Pretty darn nice, actually. There's nothing not to like about this damn thing, is there? If you need to change any of the options, you can always do this. This allows you to basically just change any settings that you need. And you can also load a different mesh if you want to, just to see what it would look like on your own mesh. I'm not going to, but you can. That's nice. I just like playing with it and making the sun all shine on the details and stuff. Okay, and if you press this button here, that'll quick export all your maps for you that you've created. So watch. In fact, just to make it so that you can see, let me see, I'll get my file for Tower 1. There it is there, Tower 1 DDO, and there's all the maps it's already created. Okay, dead easy. Right then, so I'm going to go off and drink my freezing cold coffee, and I'll see you in the next part. Bye bye.